People get so stuck on the names of political parties, they forget to look at the ideas. Yes, the Democratic Party once supported slavery. Yes, it was the Republican Party who freed them. But you have to ask yourself, did the values stay the same? Or did the party label stay put while the values quietly switched hands? What we're really talking about isn't red versus blue. It's liberalism versus conservatism, change versus tradition, progress versus preservation. The founders were radicals in their day. They rejected monarchy, they rejected state enforced religion, they pushed Enlightenment ideals of liberty, equality, and individual rights. That's not conservative, that was revolutionary. And Lincoln's Republican Party was the liberal movement of the 1860s. Abolishing slavery was seen as dangerous, destabilizing, even godless by the conservative South. But it was the moral arc bending toward justice, the expansion of liberty to those left out. And that same dynamic played out in the 1960s with civil rights. The Democratic Party, once the party of Southern conservatives, began embracing racial equality. And when they did, those other conservatives didn't suddenly become liberals, they just changed teams. And Nixon, Reagan, and the Southern strategy rolled out a welcome mat. But here's the part we don't talk about enough. We don't just inherit our eye color, we inherit our politics. If you grew up in a conservative region, odds are you grew up with conservative values, whether or not you ever called yourself a Republican. Just like religion, it's passed down, not always because it's reasoned out, but because it's familiar. And that's why most of us align with our parents' views on politics, faith, and even patriotism. We haven't done deep soul searching by 18, it's because our worldview has been shaped by what surrounds us. And this isn't just uniquely American. Look at the UK. People in England still have strong regional identities. Cockney, Scosers, Geordie, all tied to accents, class, culture, and local pride. It's not just language, it's loyalty. Now think about early America. The northern colonies were rooted in trade, industrial growth, and town-based civic structure. The southern colonies were built by agriculture, land ownership, and slavery. Over time, those regional differences hardened into cultural ideologies, and you can still feel it today. That's why so many people in the South say the Confederate flag is about heritage. And you know what? They're not wrong. It is about heritage. But if you're going to defend your heritage, you have to be willing to face all of it, not just the parts that feel good. You can't talk about Southern pride without talking about Southern history. And that includes slavery, segregation, and resistance to civil rights. I say this as someone born and raised in Georgia, and I was a Republican for most of my life. I believed what I was taught, not because I was stupid, but because I trusted the people around me. And it took me joining the Navy, sailing the seven seas, and experiencing dozens of unique cultures around the world to finally break free from the rigid boxes of conservative thinking that had been ingrained in me. But at some point, you have to step back and ask, do my values line up with the label that I'm wearing? And for me, it didn't. Because I believe liberty should keep expanding, that rights shouldn't be frozen in time, and that tradition matters, but truth matters more. Founders expanded liberty. Lincoln expanded liberty. Civil rights leaders expanded liberty. Every major step forward in American history, every push to include more people in the promise of freedom, has come from people labeled radical, dangerous, or liberal. And every major resistance to progress has come from those trying to conserve the old order. So no, the parties didn't magically switch overnight, but the ideas moved. And if you trace the path of liberty, it's always been pushed forward by people who are willing to challenge the status quo, not protect it. If you want to know who's on the right side of history, don't ask what party they're in. Ask who's expanding freedom and who's afraid of it.